everyone. Welcome to Inside the Americas. Here's a look at today's show. A shakeup in the Trump campaign staff, but less than 3 months ahead of Election Day, will it give the Republican enough to catch up to Hillary Clinton in the polls? As Rio wakes up from Olympic fever, it's now facing a bit of a hangover in the shape of Brazil's growing political crisis. And part-Titanic, part-Moby Dick, the Canadian craze for a new kind of bottled water sparks the new profession of Iceberg Hunter. I'm Jeannie Godula in Paris. First up, the race to the White House. Well, there was a new shakeup in Donald Trump's campaign this week. Just a few months away from the U.S. presidential election, the billionaire who is trailing Hillary Clinton in the polls seems to be etching out a surprising new strategy. Charles Pellegrin reports.
Donald Trump gets a change of image and tone. First off in Louisiana, where he could be seen handing out emergency supplies to flood victims. And then during a speech in North Carolina, where he appeared to come back on some of his controversial statements.
Sometimes, in the heat of debate and speaking on a multitude of issues, you don't choose the right words, or you say the wrong thing. I have done that, and believe it or not, I regret it.
A mea culpa that comes at a moment when poll numbers are increasingly edging against him. It's been a rough couple of weeks for the Republican presidential nominee. The New York Times revealed that his business empire could be in twice as much debt as initially estimated. His campaign director, Paul Manafort, had to resign in the wake of a bribery scandal tied to his past lobbying activities in Ukraine. And several GOP leaders published a letter calling Americans not to vote for him. So Donald Trump has had to change stance and attempt to get the electors he alienated on his side. In Michigan, he tried his best to woo the African-American community.
Look, what do you have to lose? You're living in poverty. Your schools are no good. You have no jobs. 58% of your youth is unemployed. What the hell do you have to lose?
On August 20th, he and his new campaign staff met with the National Hispanic Advisory Council, trying to make amends for his previous claims about undocumented immigrants.
They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists.
He's also famously called to build a wall at the border with Mexico and deport 11 million illegals from the U.S., but he might be softening his stance. He recently said he would be fair and humane when tackling the issue of immigration.
Well, the Rio Olympics have drawn to a close, with Brazil now showing twice in 2 years that it can host the world's biggest sporting events. But the initial excitement over first the Football World Cup and then the Olympics has now turned bittersweet. There have been mass protests against corruption, and this year Brazil hit a perfect storm of political crisis, recession, and a huge presidential scandal. So what do Brazilians themselves think today? Claire Williams takes a closer look now at the Olympic hangover.
This was the scene at Copacabana Beach when Rio won the Olympic bid. Tens of thousands watched the decision live on a giant TV screen. The then President Lula da Silva cried when he heard the news. The Olympics were to be his crowning achievement. 7 years later, the euphoric celebrations at Copacabana Beach seem like a distant memory. Lula now faces trial for obstructing justice. His chosen successor, Dilma Rousseff, could soon be impeached, and her replacement, Michel Temer, is accused of corruption.
While the world is watching Rio and the Olympics, nobody's watching what's happening in the capital, Brasilia. Over there, they are changing our country, and we're here without any news, except for how great Rio is.
Since Rio was awarded the Olympics in 2009, the so-called golden days of Lula's presidency have come to an abrupt end. Globally, the price of oil has plummeted, and unemployment in Brazil is rising again.
There's not enough work. Healthcare is bad, so is education. We try to get by. If there's no work, we work on the streets.
This family watched the closing ceremony fireworks from their home in Mangueira favela. Tickets were too expensive for many locals in Rio.
The legacy of the games is quite significant, but when it comes to security, considering the politicians we have around here, I think everything will go back to how it was before. Unfortunately.
The government gave Rio almost $1 billion in emergency funding to see it through the Olympics. But now the festivities have ended, old problems remain, and Rio's residents want to know what happens next.
Now, one of the biggest scandals out of the Olympics itself came from U.S. swimmer Ryan Lochte. The gold medalist first claimed he and his teammates were held up in Rio at gunpoint before Brazilian police came out saying the swimmers were not robbed at all and even vandalized a gas station while they were drunk. And as Martin Pollard reports now, the fallout for Lochte just keeps getting worse.
The cost of that night out keeps growing for Ryan Lochte. On Monday, 4 sponsors, including Speedo USA, ended their relationship with the 12-time Olympic medal winner. Speedo said, "We cannot condone behaviour that is counter to the values this brand has long stood for." As well as Speedo, Japanese mattress company Airweave, the company that owns the gentle hair removal brand, and clothing manufacturer Ralph Lauren have all decided to end their relationship with the swimmer. Lochte has been at the centre of criticism for the past week after Brazilian authorities said he and his fellow swimmers fabricated a story about being robbed. The police claim that the 4 swimmers were drunk and vandalised a petrol station. Lochte has since issued an apology, admitting he exaggerated the story. But he does maintain that there were guns involved.
The guns were pointed at us. Someone came from the gas station to help out, saying that you have to pay money. So we had to give them money. So you can either call that a robbery, you can call that extortion, or you can just say we had to pay the money for the damage of that poster. I can't say what it was.
The US Olympic Committee has said it is considering disciplinary action against the 4 swimmers.
And now it is 1 part Titanic, 1 part Moby Dick, and several parts marketing. The latest craze in Canada is bottled water from icebergs. The company behind the fad says there's little, if any, environmental impact. And while that may be in doubt, one thing's for sure: the fad has created the strange new profession of Iceberg Hunter. Fernand Van Tetz and Josh Vardy explain.
These majestic formations are made up of completely pure water frozen for millennia. Some of this ice formed 10,000 years ago, long before the arrival of man-made pollution. A mesmerizing natural phenomenon, yes, but now, for locals here on the east coast of Canada, also a business opportunity to be melted, bottled, and sold. In order to find a suitable source, ice tests are crucial.
I'm trying to shoot a piece off the iceberg so we can get a sample to test.
Twice a year, Ed and his team head out on the fjords to capture and exploit these ice giants. They've become known as the Iceberg Hunters, and they take the job seriously. First, they evaluate each block.
Now, this is an unusual piece of ice here. No good for us, no. It's too close to the salt water.
This iceberg is a different matter. It's the right size and it's stable. Extracting the ice is no simple task. First, the barge positions itself right up against the iceberg, and a rope is placed around its circumference to make sure there is no escape. The crane can then lower its teeth into the ice, lifting out a ton at a time. It's a titanic operation that takes 3 boats to complete, and each maneuver is delicate. This smaller boat is keeping the barge at a right angle to the iceberg.
he has to be directly square to it. And if the barge moves either way, she'll swing right off and we'll lose the iceberg.
Today, the barge will collect around 350 tons of ice, all of which gets crushed into smaller pieces on board. Once it's melted, 1 million litres of iceberg water sit beneath deck.
We're making money now.
For most of the year, these iceberg hunters are fishermen. But the ice water trade means extra cash. One iceberg harvesting season brings in a turnover of $200,000. Purity comes at a premium.
We do a little test on there now. There's no taste. It's absolutely a flat water, which means there's nothing in there. Nothing at all.
No mineral?
No mineral, no biological.
It's a marketer's dream, sold as is or even used in beers and vodka. This Newfoundland distillery produces 200,000 cases of the spirit a year, destined for high-end clients in North America and the Gulf. It's €15 for a bottle of water, 40 for the vodka. The producers say their business has little to no impact on the environment.
There is an unlimited amount of iceberg water out there. What gets harvested for a full year's production is not even 1%. It's not even 0.1 of 1% of the icebergs that are out there.
These men, too, say that their harvesting of a few million tons of ice will make little difference, as within a few days, the icebergs are destined to melt and disappear into the ocean.
Well, that's all the time we have for this week's show. We'll see you again next time for all the news from north to south.